Piracy is a contentious issue in the PC community, with some in the industry even considering it a flaw inherent in the platform. To that end, they opted not to port their titles to the PC, and if they did, they stacked DRM upon DRM in a misguided effort to minimize piracy. On that note, we've analysed the two most restrictive of these, Denuvo and UWP, in previous videos, so be sure to check them out. Link is in the description and the top right corner. This video hopes to give you a better understanding of how piracy works by exploring the mechanics of its ecosystem and the groups that make it possible. But if you know someone curious about how piracy works, please show them this video. Game piracy involves modification of the DRM files, the components that check the game's legitimacy and stop illicit copies from working. This is what anti-tamper software like Arxan and Denuvo are supposed to prevent. But these protections can also be broken with modified files called cracks. Pirate groups are classified by the role they play in production and distribution of these cracks. To start, let's begin with the most important, the Warez scene. The Warez scene comprises groups like Codex, Conspiracy, Steampunks, Reloaded, and Fairlight. These groups are known for their consistent, reliable, and secure cracks, which is enforced by the standards they hold each other to. Scene groups are restricted in their methods they use to crack game protections in order to ensure their cracks work on all PC configurations. If a group uses a disallowed method, the crack is nuked, meaning other scene groups flag the crack as inappropriate. Case in point, Skid Row's crack for Deus Ex Mankind Divided, A Criminal Past, was nuked for being a modified exe from Deus Ex Breach, instead of an actual crack for the game's Denuvo protection. These restrictions also forbid scene groups from making multiplayer available to pirates. If proper procedures are followed but the crack is still reported to be unstable on certain systems, the release is nuked either by the crack makers or the scene groups. This is often followed by a proper crack that fixes the issues that plague the nuked release. This is what happened when Conspiracy released a proper crack for Ghost Recon Wildlands, and in doing so nuked Steampunks' earlier crack for instability. Note how Conspiracy chides Steampunks for using a method forbidden by scene rules, blaming this for Steampunks' unstable crack. As to how they release their crack, they upload it onto underground top sites, from which it is leaked onto private and public trackers like the Pirate Bay. The upload contains the crack files bundled with the game installer and an ISO file. This ISO file can be burned onto a disk, extracted like a zip archive, or mounted on a virtual drive. Then all that's left is to install the game and copy the crack over to the game directory. Thanks to the simplicity and reliability of this process, the Warez scene is a cornerstone of game piracy and as such has been subject to numerous raids by law enforcement agencies around the world. Unsurprisingly, scene groups tend to be secretive and do not speak to the press or the public. Instead, they communicate through their NFOs, the instructions they bundle along with their cracks. These NFOs are distinguished by the decorative ASCII art, a style that has since been adopted by groups outside the scene. Scene groups do not host websites and do not seek a profit. Indeed, they rarely, if ever, make a penny from their releases. So why do they bother? For the thrill of beating other groups at cracking new protections. That brings you up to speed about the scene. Let's move on to the second category of pirate groups, peer-to-peer. Broadly speaking, peer-to-peer is an umbrella term for all non-scene groups, with 3DM and Revolt being the two most notorious. Peer-to-peer groups play a variety of roles from distributing scene cracks to cracking games themselves. In the latter case, they are not bound by scene standards and are thus unrestricted in the methods they can use to break DRMs. Case in point, Revolt's Voksi used a kernel driver to bypass Denuvo, a method off-limits to the scene. The wider array of techniques available to peer-to-peer lets them beat the scene at producing the first cracks, though the quality of peer-to-peer cracks is often questionable and nowhere near the scene standards. Case in point, the first cracks for Denuvo came from peer-to-peer group 3DM, though said cracks were buggy and unstable. Another benefit of the lack of restrictions is that peer-to-peer groups are free to take a crack at pirating multiplayer, which was successfully achieved by NT Authority's 5M for Grand Theft Auto 5, Alter IWNet and 4 Delta 1 for Modern Warfare 2, and Revolt's Steamworks fixes for a plethora of Steam titles. Peer-to-peer groups are not as reclusive as the scene, and some crackers, like the aforementioned Voksi, frequently spoke with the press and the pirate community. 3DM is another example, as their members maintain profiles on social networks and even a blog to keep pirates updated about their activities. Unlike the scene, peer-to-peer crackers have occasionally opened avenues to receive donations from the pirate community. Overall, peer-to-peer groups have carved out their own niche, offering early but unreliable cracks for impatient pirates, while the scene meticulously sculpt their cracks to perfection for a proper release. Let's move on to repackers, the last and perhaps the only optional category in our list. Unlike the two previous groups, repackers don't crack their games themselves, but rather they compress scene and peer-to-peer releases down to smaller sizes. These compressed files are then bundled with customized installers to be distributed in what they call repacks. Repacks also separate language files, so only the language needed can be installed, further saving on drive space and download time. This service is preferred by pirates with limited storage space and slow or capped internet. To be fair, there is a trade-off here. Repacks sacrifice faster installation for faster download and smaller file sizes. Repackers actively attempt to make a profit out of this, indeed with quite a few donation requests, and have websites loaded with ads and cryptocurrency mining scripts. Repacks are also the releases that carry the greatest risk, as some repacks have been reported to contain malware. Case in point, repacker Sater infected his Just Cause 3 and Rise of the Tomb Raider repacks with a Bitcoin miner, while Corpax releases carried a whole host of worms, viruses, and other malware, which they later had to admit and apologize for. Of course, the safest way to play games is to buy them, unless the game in question uses SecureROM or Starforce, a DRM so horrid it corrupted Reisevic's boot drive.
Known as Starforce, the hideous third-party DRM software utilized by Ubisoft because it managed to protect Splinter Cell Chaos 3 for over a year. Whoa! Back in its day, the DRM software was known for degrading people's optical drives over time and acting as a rootkit. But since its death, the software's power has only expanded, as in my particular case, installing King Kong Signature Edition corrupted my boot drive.
That concludes our analysis of game piracy. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. There is more content like this on the way, so please like, subscribe, and press the bell button to know when it's out. Do you play Rainbow Six Siege or Dota 2? Check out the other channel for analytical guides for both games. Link is in the description and on the screen. While you're here, feel free to watch our playlist on hardware analysis of CPUs and GPUs, our 4-part Denuvo analysis, where we explore its history, its performance impact, and why developers stick with it even after it's been cracked, and our 3-part analysis of the DRM Stronger than Denuvo, where we explore what it does and compare its success with Denuvo.